into the early life of St. Joseph. March 19 is the feast day of St. Joseph, foster father of Jesus. St. Joseph is the patron saint of a myriad causes, especially fathers, families, married couples, children, pregnant women, workers, craftsmen, against doubt, the dying, a happy and holy death, and the Catholic Church. St. Joseph is one of the most loved saints because he is the man whom God chose among all others to be the special guardian of the incarnate Jesus Christ and his mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary. He was the human guardian of the Holy Family and became of this sacred familial bond a divinely given mission. He is also the foster father of all Christians. So we should get to know our heavenly patron a little better. So much is relayed about his life from the Gospels. However, there are a few saints and blessed whose claim to have been favored with visions of the life of St. Joseph. Perhaps the most famous of this is from one of the most popular selling books, The Life of the Blessed Virgin Mary by Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich. Blessed Anne Catherine lived in 1774 and 1824. She was an Augustinian nun, a mystic and visionary who had the grace of unusual glimpses with remarkable detail into the life of the Holy Family. As private revelations, these visions do not carry any doctrinal authority, but as part of the pious belief, it shows us an example of the perfect virtue that St. Joseph certainly possessed in order to be given such a noble charge. On this day of St. Joseph, here are excerpts from the life of the Blessed Virgin Mary, that she gives us a glimpse into the life of St. Joseph, a descendant of the royal house of Israel, King David. Excerpts from the life of the Blessed Virgin Mary by St. Catherine Emmerich. Among many things which I saw today of the youth of St. Joseph, I remember what follows. Joseph, whose father was called Jacob, was the third of 6 brothers. His parents lived in a large house outside Bethlehem, and once the ancestral home of David was Father Isaiah or Jesse had owned it. By Joseph's time, there was, however, little remaining of the old building and the main walls. The situation was very airy and water was abundant there. Joseph, whom I saw in this vision at about the age of 8, was very different in character from his brothers. He was very gifted and was a very good scholar, but he was simple, quiet, devout, and not at all ambitious. His brothers knocked him about and played all kinds of tricks on him. I often saw him under the colonnade in the outer court, kneeling down with his face to the wall, praying with outstretched arms, and I saw his brothers creep up and kick at him. I once saw him kneeling like this when one of them attacked him with such violence that poor Joseph fell forward onto the hard stone wall. From this, I realized that he was not in a walking condition, but had been in an ecstasy of prayer. When he came to himself, he did not lose his temper or take revenge, but found a hidden corner where he continues in prayer. His brother's hostility at last made it impossible for him to remain any longer in his parents' house. I saw that a friend from Bethlehem, which was separated from his house by a little stream, gave him clothes in which to disguise himself. In this, he left the house at night in order to earn his living in another place by his carpentry. He might have been 18 or 20 years old at that time. To begin with, I saw him working with a carpenter at Lebanon. This was the place where he first really learned his craft. His master had his dwelling against some ancient walls which ran into the town along a narrow hill, like a road leading up to some ruined castle. Joseph was very devout, good, and simple-minded. Everybody loved him. I saw him helping his master very humbly in all sorts of ways, picking up shavings, collecting wood, and carrying it back to his shoulders. In latter days, he passed by here with the Blessed Virgin on one of their journeys, and I think he visited his former workshop with her. His parents thought at first that he had been carried off by robbers, but I saw that he was discovered at last by his brothers and severely taken to task, for they were ashamed of his low way of life. He was, however, too humble to give it. Joseph was very devout and prayed fervently for the coming of the Messiah. He was just engaged in building, besides his dwelling, a more retired room for prayer, when an angel appeared to him and told him not to do this, for as once the patriarch Joseph at about this time had, by God's will, been made overseer of all the corn of Egypt, so he, the second Joseph, should now be entrusted with the care of the granary of salvation. Joseph, in his humility, did not understand this and gave himself up to continual prayer. Still, he received the call to betake himself to Jerusalem, to become by divine degree the spouse of the Blessed Virgin Mary. You can read more about this early life of St. Joseph related by other mystics of the Church. Fidelity, along with offspring and the sacrament, is of course one of the goods of marriages, and the father will honor that with all the strength of his being, fatherhood. And fatherhood is a relationship that is much more than biological. We understand that when we commonly acknowledge St. Joseph to be the father of Jesus, though he was not his biological father, as Pope Benedict XVI noted in 2009, St. Joseph is not the biological father of Jesus, whose father is God alone, and yet he lives his fatherhood fully and completely. Drawing from the traditional litany of St. Joseph and the writing of popes on St. Joseph, we hope to sketch some of the virtues of human fatherhood. Saint Leo XIII said in his encyclical on St. Joseph, Quamquam Plurius, number 4, fathers of families find in Joseph the best personification of fraternal solicitude and vigilance. This was confirmed by Blessed John Paul II, who, in a meditation on St. Joseph, observed that St. Joseph is a perfect incarnation of fatherhood in the human and at the same time holy family. Drawing from the tradition, a father is faithful to God and to his family. Joseph remained faithful to God and scrupulously complied with all his religious familial obligations. As Pope John Paul II put it, in the course of that pilgrimage of faith, which was his life, Joseph remained faithful to God's call until the end. He has promised that fidelity until death parts him and his wife, and he abides by such promises with great fidelity. A father glorifies his home. A father will see home life as the life of the domestic church. As Vatican II Lumen Gentium wonderfully puts it, indeed, here also a father can imitate St. Joseph, who, as custodian of the divine house, which ruled with the authority of a father, continued with his limits the sacred born church. Quamquam pluris, number 3. In this, indeed, which makes Joseph, St. Joseph, the patron of the universal church. A father guards virginity in his encyclical. Pope Leo XIII describes St. Joseph as the model and protector of virgins and of virginal integrity. 63 Quamquam Plurius, number 3. By his example and by his custody, St. Joseph, the most chaste spouse, guarded and protected his own virginity and the virginity of Mary and of her Jesus. Through his example, we learn that virginity is a great good, not because marriage or properly ordered sex is evil, but because it is a voluntary giving up of a great good for a greater one. A father is the pillar of the human family. Nothing in the family will occur without his being present. He will give solace to those who suffer in the family. He will offer hope and care to those who are ill. He will love those in his charge unto death. A father provides his family with physical sustenance. Like St. Joseph, who regularly by his work earned what was necessary for nourishment and clothing, a father will provide for the physical needs of his family. 63 Quamquam Plurius, number 3. A father who, though capable, fails to provide for his family is worse than an infidel. As one translation of St. Paul's first letter to Timothy puts it, 1 Timothy 5:8. A father provides his family with spiritual sustenance. Like St. Joseph, a father should develop a deep spiritual closeness arising from marital union and the interpersonal contact between man and woman, one that has its definite origin in the Spirit, the giver of life, Redemptoris Custos number 19. You, like St. Joseph, a father should listen to God's direction. He must develop a sense of silence and learning the art of contemplation. In the silence, develop a daily events, silence, and learn the art of contemplation. Pope Francis said recently in a catechetical address on the feast of St. Joseph the Worker, St. Joseph, together with Mary, had one common center of attention, Jesus. St. Joseph learned to contemplate God, which is to recognize the Lord's constant presence in our lives, together with the ability to stop and converse with the Lord and give Him space in prayer. If the man Jesus learned to say Daddy, Father, to his Father, who he knew as God, he learned it from life, from the witness of Joseph, the man who took care of him. St. Joseph gives us 3 key lessons as we walk with him to Bethlehem. Suggested Pope Francis during his homily for morning mass at the Casa Santa Marta. Jesus, how to walk in darkness, how to listen to the voice of God, and how to forward in silence. Speaking to Joseph's struggles upon learning of Mary's pregnancy, the Pope said, Joseph fought within himself. In that struggle, the voice of God is heard. But get up, that get up, which is heard so many times in the Bible at the beginning of a mission. Take Mary, bring her to your home. Take charge of the situation. Take this situation in hand and go forward. Joseph didn't go to his friends to be comforted. He didn't go to a psychiatrist so that he could interpret the dream. No, he believed and he went forward. He took the situation in hand. But what must you take in hand, Joseph? What was the situation? What was it that Joseph had to take up? 2 things: fatherhood and mystery. Are you distressed and frightened? Pope Francis says he has a cure for you. Fatherhood and mystery. The Pope reflected. He took on a paternity that was not his own. It came from the Father. And he went ahead with that fatherhood and all it signified. Not only supporting Mary and the child, but also raising the child, teaching him the trade, bringing him up to manhood. Take up a paternity that is not yours, but God's. And this without saying a word. In the gospel, there is not a single word spoken by Joseph, a man of silence, of silent obedience. Joseph is also the man who takes in hand the mystery. Joseph took in hand this mystery God called to himself. If it is said of this man who took up fatherhood and mystery that he was the shadow of the Father, the shadow of God the Father. And if the man Jesus learned to say Daddy, Father to his Father, who he knew as God, he learned it from life, from the witness of Joseph, the man who took care of him, the man who raised him, the man who carried forward every paternity and every mystery, but took nothing for himself. This, Pope Francis said, is the great Joseph who God needed to carry forward the mystery of leading the people anew to the new creation.